Hi, this is Mrs. Allgood, and I am here to teach you about glands today. So in order to learn about glands, you're going to need your 11 by 17 paper that kind of looks like this. And so you can go ahead and start filling in that there are two types of glands. Those are endocrine and exocrine. Okay, so and if I ever go too fast, you can always just pause the video. All right, well, we're mainly going to talk about exocrine glands today, but I want to start off telling you a little bit about endocrine glands because you've heard of the endocrine system, one of our major body systems. Okay, so what makes an endocrine gland is that it's going to secrete its product into your bloodstream. And so many of our glands in our bodies do this. Our adrenal glands, our pituitary gland. Okay, the example that I'm going to give you is your pancreas. Now you'll see later on in notes that your pancreas is actually an endocrine gland and an exocrine gland because it does two different things. When it's serving as an endocrine gland, that's when it's secreting insulin into your bloodstream. So you might know that insulin helps control your blood sugar. Okay, because that gland is secreting its product directly into your bloodstream. Okay, there are no ducts involved, which are passageways. That makes it an endocrine gland when it's secreting its product directly into the bloodstream. Okay, our main focus for today are going to be your exocrine glands. So I'm going to go ahead and reveal this one. Okay, so exocrine glands don't secrete their product into the bloodstream. They secrete their product into a duct or a passageway that either opens onto an internal or an external body surface. So you might say, well, what does that mean? You probably know external body surface is going to be on the surface of your skin. Internal body surface could be like the inner lining of your stomach or the inner lining of your small intestine. Okay? So we'll see later, but the pancreas actually secretes digestive enzymes onto the inner surface of your small intestine. So when it does that, it's acting as an exocrine gland because it's not going in the bloodstream, it's going onto a body surface. Okay, underneath exocrine, there are three main types. And so for each of these types, we're going to name them. I'm going to tell you just some basic things about them, and then we're going to draw them together. So when we start drawing, it might be helpful for you to have colored pencils out because you're going to need to draw and label everything that I do. It's up to you whether you do it in color. Okay, so underneath three main types, you'll see that there's three options there. We're going to go all the way over to the left. Okay, and we're going to start off with merocrine glands. Now, like I said, these are three types of exocrine glands. Merocrine are the first we're going to talk about. And what all three of these have in common is that they all secrete their product into a duct or a passageway. So how they're going to be different is how that product gets in there. Okay, merocrine glands are going to release their secretory product into their duct by exocytosis. So I don't know if you remember learning about that in your biology class, but I put a picture of it here and you'll see one on your long sheet. Exocytosis involves vesicles. Okay, vesicles is like something shown here. It's used for transport. So what happens in exocytosis is that a vesicle fuses with the cell membrane and then dumps its contents outside. Okay, so in the case of a merocrine gland, its secretory product is going to be in here. And so in our case, this might be something like saliva or sweat. And that vesicle containing that saliva or sweat is going to fuse with the cell membrane. And then that saliva or sweat is going to get put into the duct, which is a passageway, so it can be secreted out to a body surface. Okay, because we're just using vesicles, there's no injury done to the cell. You're not losing a piece of the cell. There's no damage done. That cell is unharmed because exocytosis is a very normal process that occurs all the time. Okay, so your examples for Merocrine glands are going to be your salivary glands and most of your sweat glands. Okay, so think about when we draw this together that what we're going to be secreting in this case is either saliva or sweat. All right, so next to the whatever you just wrote, there's a little place that says draw Merocrine here. Okay, so we're going to be drawing this together. So you want to draw what I draw. I will do my best to label this together, and I hope my hand is not too shaky. All right, first thing we want to do is we want to draw a bunch. We're going to draw cells, but we're going to draw them in a certain shape. Okay, so I'm trying to draw my computer, which is not the easiest thing in the world, but I'm trying. Okay, so they're roughly cuboidal shaped cells. This is going to be a simple cuboidal epithelium. Okay, so what you just drawn, these boxes that you've just drawn, are the cells that make up the Merocrine gland. All right, next, I'm going to see if I can use one of my little tools here. Next, we are going to, I'm going to put a little circle in each one. So I know you don't have that capability. You can just draw circles. But I want you to draw a circle inside each one of those cells. All right, and then we're going to label what that circle is. Okay, that circle is the nucleus of the cell. All right. Next, we have our secretory product, which remember is going to be our saliva and our sweat. So I'm going to draw circles once again, but this time they are going to be a little smaller, and they're going to be little empty circles. Okay, I'm going to draw some going pretty close to that cell membrane. Well, they shouldn't be that big. There you go. Okay, now what we just drew there is called a secretory vesicle. Okay, or you can just think of it like a vesicle, even if you didn't want to call it a secretory vesicle. But that is this thing. It's a vesicle. So really you got to know that it's called a vesicle. All right, and it's used for transporting things. All right, now here comes the fun part. Inside those vesicles, let's see, I want to pick green, I think. Inside those vesicles, we're going to draw some dots. Okay, I'm trying to put some dots in there. We're going to put some dots inside those vesicles. Okay, now what's going to happen if you look at this cell over here is this little secretory vesicle is going to move closer to the cell membrane, and then when it does, it's going to release that secretory product into this place in here, which is called the duct. So remember, this middle part is the duct of the gland. That's this whole middle part. And so I want you to notice what's getting put in that duct. Okay? What's getting put in that duct is all this green stuff. And so I want to show you what the green stuff represents. That green stuff is your secretory product, which is either saliva or sweat. Okay, so something to notice in this picture. No damage happens to the cell. The only thing we're putting in that duct is the actual secretory product itself, which is either the saliva or sweat. And so what you're going to be asked to do when you get a review sheet for this, when we have a quiz on this, when we have a test on this, is you're going to have to be able to match up a picture of a American gland, of a gland like this with the name American. You're going to have to know that the product that would be there would either be saliva or sweat. Okay? And so once we draw the other glands, you're going to see how they look different. All right, so let's move on to apocrine. This is our next gland we've got to learn about. So this is the one to the right of merocrine. All right, and this is where prefixes come in really handy. So apo, okay, comes from the word apex, which means tip. And the reason that that's so important here is because the secretory product for this one is going to collect at the tip of the cell, and then the tip is going to break off kind of like this iceberg. So I put this picture of Yukon Cornelius and Hermie and Rudolph. If you've ever seen the Rudolph special in December, the tip of the cell breaks off very much like this little iceberg breaks off. Okay, so let's get this down in our next box. So this is how I remember what apocrine does. The secretory product collects at the tip of the cell, or the apex of the cell. Then that piece will break off, carrying with it its secretory product. And so because a piece of the cell is breaking off, we say that there's some damage done to the cell. Okay, because you are losing a little piece of it. I really like this analogy to the piece of an iceberg breaking off. I think that's a good way to think about it. So your examples for apocrine glands are mammary glands that produce milk. So in this case, when we draw this, our secretory product is going to be milk. Okay, so just remember, from going too fast, feel free to pause this. But I'm going to move on to drawing our picture. Okay, so just like we did last time, we are going to draw some cuboidal shaped cells. I'm trying. It's hard drawing this by hand though, but I'm getting there. All right. Like I did before, I'm going to use my little tools here to draw in a nucleus. Oops, I do want something. I want something filling that one up. Nope, not green. Let's try orange. There we go. Okay, so just like it was before, this is going to represent the nucleus of the cell. And don't worry that they're different sizes. It's late and I'm getting tired. Okay? So, that is going to be your nucleus. Next, we want to show our secretory product. So in this case, our secretory products are going to kind of collect in one of these corners of the cell. And it doesn't really matter which corner. Okay, I might make it go to this corner down here. Okay, but in this case, our pink is going to be our secretory product. So I know I can't draw dots very well on my computer, but please make these dots. Okay, those are going to be little milk droplets. Okay, so you just want to do some dots there. I'm going to do some dots down here. Okay, so over here, we want to know that our pink that we're drawing in is going to be our secretory product, which is milk. Okay, So notice that it's collecting in a corner. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to draw like some dashed lines here. Okay? Those little pieces are going to break off. Okay, I don't need to draw them in all the cells, but what we're going to end up having is we're going to have little pieces of cells that end up in this middle part, which remember is called our duct. Okay, so when this little piece breaks off, it's going to end up right here. Okay, so inside these, I want to put some of that secretory product. So remember that this place in the middle is called the duct, and this is our cell. Ooh, that's kind of weird. This is our cell fragment containing milk. Okay, so the milk collects in the corners, and then that corner of the cell breaks off, and that's what enters the duct, and that's what comes out on the surface of your skin. So this is an apocrine type of exocrine gland. All right, next we've got holocrine. So when you hear holocrine, I want you to think whole cell. Because if you notice, what made these different is how the secretory product gets into the duct. And what ends up being in the duct. In the merocrine glands, it was just the secretory product and nothing else. In that case, it was saliva or sweat. In the case of an apocrine gland, it was fragments of the cell with the secretory product in it. Well, this time, what's going to be in the duct are whole cells, and we're going to show that in our picture. So the entire cell filled with secretory product enters the duct. Okay, so in order to release its product, the cell's going to have to sort of self-destruct. So through cell division, cells can divide and cells can be put in that duct, but then the cells that are in the duct are going to have to self-destruct in order for their product to get released. So an example of a gland that does it this way is a sebaceous gland, which is an oil gland that's in your skin that secretes oil onto the surface of your skin. So we're going to draw this one. Okay, same way we start out. Same shape of the gland. We're just drawing our simple cuboidal cells. All right. So there's our simple cuboidal cells. We need to put a nucleus in each one. So we're going to do that. So hopefully you know by now. Normally the nuclei in these cells would be centered. I'm going to skip that one for a second and I'll show you why. Sometimes when you see a picture of a holocrine gland, you might actually see cells undergoing division. So if you remember in your biology class learning about like mitosis, okay, and you had to look for cells in all these different phases under the microscope, okay, I'm going to draw this cell in mitosis because it's dividing to replace the cells that are going to end up in the middle here. So when this cell divides, you know, one of the cells that it makes can go in the middle here. Okay, so got some bigger things in the middle. Now, how are we going to know that they're cells? Well, we'll know if they're cells because they'll have a whole nucleus inside. Okay? And so in addition to that, we know it's got to have our secretory product. Oops. Hold on. So we know these cells will have the secretory product, but notice what's in here. Okay, there's your secretory product. There's your secretory product. And so these cells are all going to have that. Oops, that shouldn't have been a line. Ignore that. These cells will all have that secretory product, which in this case is sebum or oil. Okay? And then if you look at this cell right here, it's going to have to self-destruct in order to release this oil or sebum into the duct so that that oil can get put on the surface of your skin. So I want you to go back and look at your 3 pictures here of the exocrine glands, your merocrine, your apocrine, and your holocrine, and I want you to see how what you're putting in this middle part, this duct or the passageway, is what makes the 3 of them different, and that's where they get their names from. Okay? Finally, up in the top right-hand corner of your long sheet, you have a box that says side note at the end. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but this is just clarifying that your pancreas is kind of unique because most glands in your body are either endocrine or exocrine, but your pancreas is different because it's actually both. So it serves as an endocrine gland when it releases insulin and glucagon into your bloodstream in order to regulate your blood sugar. And it serves as an exocrine gland when it secretes digestive enzymes through the pancreatic duct into the inner lining of your small intestine to help with digestion. So I put this little picture in the upper left-hand corner of your long sheet just to show you that your pancreas has different types of cells. It's got cells, these ACE and R cells, that serve more of an exocrine function. And then we've got the endocrine cells, like your islets of Langerhans cells, that are actually responsible for secreting your insulin and glucagon. All right, well, I think that that's all. I'm sure you'll be quizzed on this one day next week. So remember, the last thing you need to do is, I don't want a picture of this screen. I actually want you to put your ID on top of your paper that you filled in with all your pictures, and then you need to send that to your teacher. There'll be a way for you to submit it via It's Learning, or you can always email it to your teacher. So we don't want your ID in front of the screen. We want your ID in front of the paper, the long sheet that you just filled out. All right. Thanks, guys. See you soon.